It's a really interesting thing for a firm that goes multinational because they then have a base in two places, right? You have your home country and your home country rules. So trying to deal with the home country rules and the foreign country rules is an interesting issue. Now, I think the more interesting issue than the United States going to Sweden, where the rules are roughly the same, it seems to me, is going to an emerging market or a developing country that has a lot of institutional voids. It's missing the rules. So you go from a high-regulated country like the United States, where codes of conduct and standards of anti-discrimination and pollution are well understood, and you go to a country that's missing those rules. And the question is, how do you handle this? And typically what happens is American firms will go in and carry the rules in with them. And they will therefore pay higher. The empirical evidence is that American firms pay more going into a foreign country than local firms do. Firms should see themselves as a stranger in a strange land and assume that where they are is not like home again. You know, it's not Kansas. And so almost anything you can do could be a cultural faux pas, from the color of the clothes you wear to whether you put your business card in a metallic case or a plastic case, to whether you start to talk business before lunch or not, to the time that you arrive, to whether you ask after someone's spouse or their children, whether that's allowable or not allowable. It's almost, in some sense, you have to assume you're a stranger in a strange land, and if you don't, you can really make major mistakes. One of the things we teach in class is about a man called Geert Hofstede, who talked about sort of 5 cultural characteristics that are different across countries. One of them, for example, a really common one, is power distance. Power distance is how you feel about hierarchical relationships, right? For example, Mexico is what we would call a high power distance country. People are more formal. They introduce themselves by their formal title. You would not use a first name. People will be more likely to be in business suits and ties. That would be very different from the United States, where people are much less formal, much more likely to speak to individuals by their first name and to be more relaxed. Another one that we think about is what we call masculinity and femininity. I don't think that's really a misnomer, but the idea behind it is what matters to you is what drives you are financial rewards, you know, so that your goal in life is to make as much money as you can. I mean, some cultures are much more driven by tangible financial rewards and things. Others, family matters more, right? That it's the non-pecuniary things that matter to their lifestyle. They want to live close to their family. They want their grandparents around. So understanding these, I think, is important in the workplace. Here's a third one, which is how important is individualism versus collectivism. Individualism says, I want to be paid on my merit. I want you to assess my merit. I want to know what my merit is, and I want to be paid that way. Collectivism says, I'm part of a group. I think of myself as part of a group. We earn rewards as a group. Those rewards should be evenly distributed as a group. So if you take an American firm, and all 3 of those things, an American firm most typically would be individualistic with merit pay, low power distance, it would be, and typically much more masculine. You go to a country like Korea, which would be the opposite in all 3 of these, and you try to introduce human resource management, HR techniques that work here, say in New York, and you try to translate those to Seoul, they don't work. And that can create all kinds of problems. That's why sometimes going with a partner is helpful, because they can help you learn the culture. For a small middle market company going abroad, you know, in many ways it used to be easier. I've sort of said there's liability foreignness issues that are political issues, non-market issues that are really problematic, cultural issues, unfamiliarity hazards, discriminatory hazards. And now I'm saying, you know, add on top of that, you know, if you're not careful, you could go into a country, get hit with double taxation and penalty taxes on the top of that, and end up making less money than if you stayed at home. In many ways, I think firms have been too eager to go overseas. too cavalier about thinking that the world is flatter than it is. I think in the past, when firms were deciding where to go, they focused on the sort of simple things you think about. Geographic distance, right? Maybe you'd worry about a tariff rate if you were exporting in, you know what the tariff costs were abroad. Now I think firms have to look at a much more nuanced picture of the benefits and costs of being in overseas markets. The companies, I think, if I had a piece of advice, I would say go regional before you go global. And be very careful at looking at all factors of the decision, of looking at not just the economic and the geographic, but the cultural issues, the liability of foreign issues, and the whole non-market environment surrounding the firm, and making those decisions on where to go, and know why you're going. It's not just, you know, following the leader in. It's not, and it's not going global for the sake of going global. That needs to be, firms that do that, seems to me, that go global for the sake of going global, end up going out of business.
So, you've heard from Lehman's Gaskets' Richard Owen and Dr. Lorraine Eden on some considerations of going global. And while at first it might seem rather daunting, following their advice, along with some of the other business in the eye of the storm materials that we've prepared on the topic, could make it easier for your company to circumnavigate the globe too. In this month's Storm Tracker, I'll take you through a multi-step process that UHY Advisors has created to help you with the process of going global.